Good morning. Awesome. How are you? Okay, great. You're awake-ish. It's a true honor to be here. I have heard about this conference for many years. I know many of you are dear friends of mine, and the creativity just looking through the program is really quite impressive. So to be here on this stage is a true honor. Thank you very much. So I want to talk to you today about how we make impact. So by a show of hands, who's interested in making impact of some kind? Okay, this is good. This is very good. Impact is good. Impact effectively means having an impact on something or someone. And there are, as we know, many ways to have impact. We could have impact building software and hardware that people use. We could have impact influencing tech policy. We could have impact starting a company. This morning I'm going to talk to you about a very specific kind of impact, and that is social impact, which I define as positive change for society. So I'm going to start with a video, if Jeff can get that ready, of Aaron, who's my former student, and how his work impacted sick children throughout the country. So Jeff, would you roll that video, please?
I love tinkering and building. My fascination with robots really blossomed when I was in college, and actually through the project that ended up creating our company, Sproutel. I started observing families of children with type 1 diabetes. What we learned is that kids were acting out all of these medical procedures with their stuffed animals. We designed a robot, Jerry the Bear.
This is Jerry the Bear.
For children with diabetes that would exhibit the same symptoms as them.
My blood sugar level is 149.
A robot that they could care for that could be just like them.
He has one right here.
And I have one right here.
Yeah, you do.
While our initial insight was for children with diabetes, we've seen that the same thing holds true for children with cancer, and that's what inspired us to then create my special Aflac duck. The duck that we created for children also has cancer, a friend who's just like you, who's going through the same experiences as you to provide comfort.
Duck is singing.
Yes.
The duck is fully responsive to the child. It has sensors in its cheeks, down its back, and under its wings, so as they pet it, as they cuddle with it, the duck is reacting. It is very difficult for them to communicate their feelings. So we have this series of tokens that we developed that we call feeling cards. And each one has a different emoji on it. Happy, silly, scared, mad. And you can tap them right to the duck's chest and it'll emote. This is the sad card. It gives them a way to communicate to their caregivers that's less stressful than being asked, hey, how do you feel about getting chemo? Using the app that the duck comes along with. They get to control when their duck receives chemotherapy treatments. You can also do things like give your duck a bath because it's really stressful for kids to get a sponge bath. We had a parent call us up and tell us that their child started to refer to their diabetes as a superpower. And that's the feeling that we want to give to every single child with illness. It was incredibly emotional to work with the kids. There was a little boy named Kyrie who, every time I would try to leave the room, he would grab my finger and he just wouldn't let go. And through the time that we were testing, Kyrie's cancer actually went into remission. He finished treatment. And that was just the best possible feeling that we could have had. Sorry. September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. We're rolling out ducks.
Thank you, Jeff. May I have the slides back up too? Thank you. So what's the moral of that story? Why did I show that to you? I showed that to you because I believe that connection is key. Connecting with other people and trying to alleviate their struggles is a very powerful way of making social impact. And when we connect with others, we can create solutions that people will use. We can find interesting problems to apply our technical expertise, and we can develop solutions to problems that we may never have thought of. So who am I? As Francois introduced, I'm an engineering design professor at Northwestern, and I research and design collaboration tools. I'm also faculty founder of Design for America, which I founded 10 years ago with these 3 students, 2 of whom are engineering majors and 1 was a physics major. And we were sitting on the floor of my office and we were imagining how might we mobilize young people across the country to use their technical skills to make social impact in their local communities. Frankly, we were tired of young people being ignored as problem solvers and being described as indifferent. And we believed to build a healthy society, we needed to empower young adults to work together as leaders, and particularly leaders who valued and prioritized societal well-being over material gain. We were deeply inspired by the organizations of the past, like the Peace Corps, who mobilized youth to support economic and social development abroad starting in the 60s, and Teach for America, who encouraged a new generation of teachers in the US in the 90s. So today, Design for America is a national network of thousands of voluntary students, mentors, community, and industry partners who work together to make social impact in their local community. Universities across the US, such as Tulane here in New Orleans, host these studios where interdisciplinary teams identify grand social challenges that are meaningful to them, such as pollution, illiteracy, and environmental disasters. So these interdisciplinary teams work together to reframe and scope challenges and rapidly generate and test ideas. And projects conclude when the solutions are implemented rather than when the semester ends. So let's consider Matt Wilcox, a Design for America student who watched his grandmother after she experienced a fall. Not only did she endure a long hospital stay and grueling physical therapy sessions, she also experienced long-lasting emotional trauma. It made her feel like she was getting old, recalls Matt, and it was depressing for her. She lost her confidence. So upset by this experience of his grandmother's, Matt was determined to reduce falls among elderly adults. He quickly learned that his grandmother was not alone. Half of assisted living residents fall every single year. The falls cause 2.2 million annual emergency room visits and are the leading cause of injury death for older adults. And up to 40% of assisted living falls happen at night, where there's less staff on hand and residents can't see as well in the low light. So Matt and his teammates partnered with a local assisted living home to develop an ultra-thin bed sensor and easy-to-install lighting system. So when a resident gets out of bed, lights are automatically activated, illuminating pathways to nighttime destinations such as the restroom. Fortune magazine recently featured Luna Lights, the company that they started, for breaking into one humongous market that hardly any tech vendor is addressing, and that is tech-supported caregiving for our rapidly aging population. So this project is just one of hundreds that Design for America students, student-led teams have taken on to make social impact in their local community. And throughout this work, I'm consistently asked the following 4 questions that I wanted to share with you today. The first one is, how do I make sure I'm working on an important problem? Second, how do I make sure I'm solving the right problem? Third, how do I scope the problem? And how do I make sure that the solution will work? So I'm going to share a few stories about how we've addressed these questions through Design for America. I'll start with one at a time. So let's start on the first one. How do I make sure I'm working on an important problem? The first step to doing so is to start by reading the news in whatever form. So despite being busy people, we always make time to read the news to get to know what the grand challenges are. We read the local, the national, and the global news, and we follow conversations on social media of thoughtful people who are reflecting on these great grand challenges. We're staying informed. Yes, sometimes we have the luxury of sitting down with our coffee and reading the newspaper cover to cover, but more often than not, we don't. Normally it's quickly on our phone on our way to work. And so by staying aware of the problems around us, we can become, and increasingly become, keen observers of the things in our communities that are not working. Of course, reading the news and following or engaging in the online discussion are still remote from the lived experiences of people of these challenges. So the next step is actually to seek the unmediated reactions and interactions with those directly affected. I'll share another case from Design for America. When junior Ellen Sue read that kids with scoliosis were having dangerous and costly surgeries that could have been prevented by wearing plastic back braces, she could have ignored the problem completely. But instead, she reflected on it and what she could personally do about it. So Ellen reached out to her classmate Levi, who had suffered from scoliosis as a kid, to learn more. Together, Ellen and Levy built SIGCHI. It's a Bluetooth device that can be retrofitted to any back brace on the market and connects to software that monitors patients for proper brace fit and usage. SIGCHI rewards kids with frequent use and provides a social support platform for all the kids using it. Currently, they're testing with 100 kids this product at the New York Presbyterian Hospital. What's interesting to me is Ellen and Levy's approach is very consistent with Sutton's research on effective innovators. Sutton finds in his research that people who stay informed about the world are more likely to innovate because they bring information to bear from one domain to another. They're able to connect the dots. So Ellen and Levy use sensor technology to help kids with scoliosis. But to do so, they had to know about both domains. So let's try this. I know it's early in the morning and this is a hard activity, but let's try it. I'm going to post a few news articles from the past week that I picked. And I want to invite you to think about how your work, the work that you're doing right now, might positively impact these challenges. This happened just down the street. New Orleans Hard Rock Hotel killed 2 people last week. So I want us to ask ourselves, how might the technology that we're developing make a positive impact on this issue? Do we know anybody affected by this collapse? What do you think it feels like to be a central player in this disaster? Here's another one. In my town, the school's closed. Chicago Public Schools closed because they weren't getting enough money and the classrooms were too big. So how might the technology that you're developing make positive impact on school closings? How might it make impact on the unmanageably large size of classrooms? Or the need, as these teachers asked for, the need for more social workers in school? And I'll conclude with one last one, which is particularly close to me. This is an article I recently read about a young man losing his life to vaping. And this is particularly close to me because I was at school at the time with James Monzi and Adam Bowen, who are the people who created the Juul vaping device. I was literally sat right next to them in class. So I've been asking myself, how might the technology I'm developing make a positive impact on this issue? Do I know anybody affected by this phenomenon? And what do you think it feels like, again, to be a central player in this news item? So by reading the news, we can start to imagine potential paths to impact. And I'm going to encourage us all to read what's going on, make connections to the work, and use our heart as much as our head. Jeff, could you shut down the slides for a moment? Okay, you can bring them back up. Thank you. The second question I'm often asked is, how do I make sure I'm solving the right problem? Well, the answer, as many of you probably know, is get to the root cause, or the causes. So at Design for America, we get to the root causes by using the 5 why technique. And the 5 why technique is, as some of you know, is an iterative, interrogative technique used to explore the cause and effect challenges, relationships of a challenge. And the goal of the 5 whys is to discover the cause or causes of a problem by repeating the question, why? And the answer forms the basis of the next question. So the answer to the last question, why, may suggest a broken process or a behavior to be changed. So let's consider the following example. The car is not running. Why? The battery is dead. Why? The alternator is not working. Why? The alternator belt is broken. Why? The alternator belt was old and well beyond its useful service life. Why? The vehicle was not maintained according to the recommended service schedule. A root cause we can address. So I've been asked Do I always need to ask exactly 5 whys? The answer is no. It could be 3. It could be 7 whys. The goal is ultimately to get to a broken process or behavior to be changed. And the magic of the 5 whys is that we must first to get to know the problem in the context more deeply, and it prevents us from developing shallow solutions. So let's see how this 5 whys worked in a Design for America group that was trying to reduce hospital-acquired infections that can lead to death. For me, this is a particularly upsetting problem. Hospital-acquired infections means that you can show up at a hospital, be treated for one condition, but in the course of that treatment, die from an infection you only got because you went to the hospital in the first place. And I want to be clear, hospital-acquired infections happen at all hospitals. This is not just at low-resource hospitals. This is every single hospital. So the team started by asking why hospital infections happen. One reason, people do not wash their hands. The World Health Organization, in fact, recommends that there's 5 critical moments for hand hygiene by the bedside of a patient. Please take note of this if you're ever in the hospital. Unfortunately, most moments are ignored. So the team was highly enthusiastic to develop solutions to the problem the moment they read this World Health Organization report. But at Design for America, we teach them to slow down for a moment and ask the 5 whys. So digging past these surface impressions, dwelling in the whys of the problem space, they met with doctors to learn the answers to the next question. Why don't doctors wash their hands? They asked. And the team learned that while well aware of the importance of hand washing, doctors don't always wash their hands because they don't want to leave the patient's bedside during the little time that they have with them. So during an overnight visit, the team asked, why do doctors even need to leave their patients at their bedside? The answer? Well, hand sanitation is not immediately at the patient's bedside. So this insight combined with a fortuitous trip to the beach that evening in which a team member stood up and naturally wiped his sandy hands off his pants, he asked, why can't hand sanitation be as easy as wiping sand off your pants? So they worked with doctors at a local hospital to create this personal, more accessible hand hygiene system to minimize distractions from the patient. Their system has been successful, resulting in 64% improvement in adherence with desired hand hygiene habits. So, at Design for America, if we want to have impact, we need to and we don't get to the root cause. We risk being blindsided by our assumptions about the problem, solving the wrong problem, offering solutions that don't help, missing new opportunities for impact. So, by asking why early and often, we can expand our approach to identifying and tackling social challenges in our communities to more reliably make impact. The third question I'm often asked is, once we identify our root cause, how do we scope it in a way that's tractable? So at Design for America, the teams regularly reframe massive social problems as a series of small, personal, solvable problems. So consider the following. An estimated 30 to 40% of children in the US need glasses, yet many do not wear glasses, making reading and ultimately learning difficult. So college sophomore Nathan Kandamuri could have been overwhelmed by the problem, the large scale of this problem, but instead he reflected about the problem and what he reacted emotionally to. And for him, it was that kids didn't wear glasses for fear of being bullied. Nathan recalled his own experience. I was in 3rd grade, the first kid in my class to wear glasses. He describes often taking them off even though he needed to see clearly. He said, other kids made fun of my glasses. I was a confident kid before, but those glasses affected me. So Nathan teamed up with classmate Sophia Edelstein, who was motivated to address this issue. And they asked themselves, in what ways could they make even the slightest difference for these children? So they reached out to a local elementary school teacher, and there they learned that kids feel empowered when they can customize things, like their backpacks, their notebooks. Anybody who has children can understand this immensely. Kids love to do this. So we wondered, what if we could empower children with newly prescribed glasses to get excited about their glasses? Nathan and Sophia built Pair Eyewear, kids' glasses that come off with snap-off frames in different colors and patterns. So kids can wear their glasses to read more easily, and simultaneously make a statement. And for every pair that they sell, they donate a pair to kids who can't afford prescription eyewear. So Nathan and Sophia's reframing is consistent with Carl Weick's theory of small wins. Weick posits that the massive scale of social problems precludes people from taking action because they feel overwhelmed. So reformulating large problems as small problems in a flawed system makes actions appear manageable. This framework allows us to see concrete and complete outcomes and build a track record of success. And this track record encourages continued action. It can attract supporters and even deter opponents. So simply looking at a problem at a personal level makes it possible for us to do the work we want to do. So we seek not just to understand an isolated user, but a community of users. And although connecting with potential users is crucial, connecting with fellow researchers, makers, is just as critical to our success. Design for America teams reach out to others to get feedback, understand the context. The teams reach outside of the academy to mentors and friends to test their nascent ideas. They don't hide until they have the perfect solution. They get feedback and refine as they go. And in fact, many teams set up shop in the community in which they're working so they can immerse themselves in the problem and regularly test hunches to see if their solutions will work. Understanding the context for which we are designing is increasingly important, especially as ubiquitous technologies need to interact with each other. Context is critical. The fourth question is, how do I make sure the solution will work? And to increase the likelihood of the solution working, at Design for America, we teach the students to reach out to people to understand the context, to get regular feedback, and get help from the people who know things that they don't. So it's critical to take the value of making it personal and extending that by making it social. As you may have heard, problems we're solving are rarely in a single domain. Any one of us is unlikely to have broad enough expertise to be able to solve problems worth solving. So your expertise might be in machine learning with sensor input, but you realize that the solution that will work requires other design expertise as well. And we can collaborate with experts as needed to get the solutions designed and built effectively. So to illustrate, I want to return to the hand hygiene case. These students have since started a company called SwipeSense, and a few years ago, when meeting with a hospital administrator, they noticed that somebody had attached the SwipeSense ID tag to a piece of medical equipment. When they asked why this had been done, the nurse responded, quite simply, that it helped him to be able to find the equipment when he needed it. A major problem in hospitals is you can't find the equipment when needed. So now, Mert and Yuri, the students who started this company, are working with hospital purchasers to provide a new service that not only tracks hand hygiene, but also the location of medical equipment. So Mert and Yuri would have never thought of this solution or even thought of this problem or even this solution if they hadn't been in the hospital looking at how their hand hygiene system was working. So by reaching out to people to understand the context, get regular feedback, and get help, they increase their likelihood of the solution working, as well as getting new ideas. So now that I've answered these 4 questions that I'm frequently asked about making social impact, I'm going to be honest with you. There are some challenges to this work. It can be very uncomfortable. It can take time. The answer is not always technology. It often requires teamwork. It can be really uncomfortable learning about the massive challenges our society is facing and that we don't currently have solutions for. It can be really uncomfortable asking people why over and over again to get to the root cause when the person answering may not even know it themselves. And it can be really uncomfortable making projects personal because it means revealing your connection. It can be uncomfortable reaching out because it means committing to getting something done, even if you're not sure how it will happen. And it can be really uncomfortable setting up in the community because we may not know the community that well. We may not know who stands to benefit and, frankly, who will stand to lose from a particular solution or who will set the rules for their use. And while we can't necessarily foresee negative consequences of our interactions, by being in the community, we can see if and when consequences first appear and have time to address them. So being in the community supports a feedback loop for accountability. Time spent empathizing with users is time spent away from building. Personally, I follow the 80-20 rule to find the right balance. 80% of the time I'm building, and 20% of the time I'm out of the lab trying to make connections to the grand challenges, working in the community. Recent research finds that people who take lots of self-focused breaks subsequently report feeling more empathy for others. So this is encouraging you to take these breaks. This might seem counterintuitive, but when people feel restored, they're better able to perform demanding tasks of figuring out and responding to what other people need. Further, much of the technology we design won't immediately solve important societal problems, but the path to impact should be clear. And some of the technology we design for a particular societal problem won't end up solving the original problem for reasons unforeseeable at the time, but can likely be applied elsewhere. And asking the 5 whys can mean the answer isn't always technology. This is particularly hard for somebody like me who tends to look for technology-driven solutions. So here's an example of this. This is work done by a student, Charles Tuckowitz, who was a design and manufacturing engineering major, who took on bike safety in Evanston. He learned that while motorist fatalities are decreasing, bicyclist fatalities are increasing. So initially, he started to think about how he might use sensors to warn bicyclists of approaching cars and cars of approaching bicyclists. But through his research, he discovered that one of the root causes of accidents was actually miscommunication between bicyclists and drivers. So his solution was to create a sign reminding bicyclists how to signal their direction and remind all road users what the signs actually mean. So while initial evidence suggests that these signs are helping to decrease the number of bicycle accidents, the new solution, this sign, is not currently likely to be accepted as a paper at UIST. Rather, it might appear in a journal of injury prevention. So if the best solution is not technical, should we still design it because we know it could have impact? I believe it's imperative to be honest and humble when we come across cases where technology isn't necessarily the best solution. DFA solutions span a range of technologies and types of design, but they all aim to make existing situations into preferred situations. So I feel I'm obliged to make assessments of the benefits of risks of new knowledge and new technologies. And I need to reflect on how the priorities of our discipline are shaping the problems that we believe are worth solving. So I end, so the question is, what does this all mean? Get to my ending. To make social impact, the more we need to connect to a grand social challenge. The deeper we need to dig to get to the root cause. The more we need to make it personal. And the broader we need to reach out. Connecting with others doesn't always mean sacrificing one's own needs for others, but it's about learning what challenges are important to our community to make our work have even more impact. We can and should be exactly who we are. We can take our love of technology and apply it to the problems that society is facing that resonate with us. And I believe we can all do this. So, to the researchers in the room, why might you consider adopting some of the practices I described? I would say that opportunities for application for your technology may be hiding in plain sight. This work is very meaningful. You will never be without inspiration. And perhaps your technologies are more likely to be adopted. To the teachers and managers in the room, why might you consider fostering these practices? Well, I've found that increasingly young technologists are looking for work within their communities, and they're looking to implement solutions. Further, we know that students who have the technical skills and a well-grounded sense of social responsibility are found to be best equipped to deal with the consequences of technological interventions. So I end with this. If what we build is an expression of our values, is our work reflecting our deepest held values about society? What will be your story of impact? Thank you.